Okay, everybody, welcome. Welcome. Here I am. It's me, Legal Vices, and I'm purple. Let me turn my let me turn my light on. Okay. Oh, there we go. Hey, I'm back and slightly less purple. Just slightly. All right. I knocked my camera down there. Hey, well, all right, now that we're off to that fantastic start, let me choke on my own saliva because that's how I roll. All right. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across this fruity little plane of ours as we hurtle through the universe on this little place we call Earth. I am Legal Vices, and we are here. You know, I thought we were done with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard for good, at least until the appeal is heard, if it in fact does get that far. But it appears that the universe had other plans for us. The universe intended us, I guess, to talk more about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I really do think it's time to move on, but there's sometimes you just have to roll with what the universe throws at you. Before we get going, let's do our little check-ins here. Yep, Nick is back. Yes, Nick finally made his way back after 10 days of suspension. Good to see him back. What do you got here? Yes, people are saying he's late coming back from his 7-day suspension and gay. All righty. We've got where do we got people from? Just waiting for people to trickle in here before we jump into our topic of the day. Melbourne, Australia, checking in. That's good. Anybody else? Where are we all from? Obviously, I am here in dark South Korea. It is 8:05 p.m. We got South Dakota checking in. Ohio. Looks like we got the. What are you guys in the Midwest doing up at this hour? This is like you guys are in that time zone where it's too late for you to be up and it's too early for you to be up. So it's kind of, you're not like you're going to sleep late or getting up early. I'm just assuming you're all night workers, because that's what I did when I worked in radio way back in the day. Was I worked a midnight to 6 shift, and you had the people that were just staying up late, the people that were getting up early, the people that worked overnight, and then just the insane people. London, UK, St. Louis, Missouri, Colorado Springs, Tennessee, and Finland. Hello, Finland. Good to see you, Wax. Shay Chaser says, a buzzing fly woke me. I'm seeking revenge upon the species. Texie in the hizzy. Mortimer Duke. All right. Maine. Got Maine checking in. Southeast Louisiana. All right. Then South Africa. Pseudo Meaningful. Welcome from South Africa. It's always good to see South Africa in the house. Lady Autumn Sky says, I have toddler twins, so I'm always up. All right. Well, here we are. Let's get this rocking. We got 121 of you here already. That's pretty good. And hey, I haven't done anything, and I've already earned 56 likes. You guys rock. So before we get going, let me get the shill information out of the way here. Got to do the shill / and or grift. Wait, the shill and / or grift. If you're here, if you're liking what you see, please do me a favor. Reach down, hit that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. It lets YouTube know that you enjoy what I'm producing. And if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. We got a whole bunch of new subscribers overnight. I'm not sure why, but I'm grateful for it. If you have already subscribed, please be aware that YouTube seems to be going through one of its quarterly, we're just going to unsubscribe people for random reasons. So if you have subscribed already, please just double check down there to make sure you're still subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would be deeply honored if you would do me the favor, do me the solid of reaching down there and smacking that like button and hitting that notification little bell end down there. And come back later after the stream is over and you've had a little bit of time to do whatever you need to do. Come on back and just leave a comment to feed the algorithm gods. That helps the engagement algorithm. Lets people know that you're going to keep coming back. And this is all the stuff that'll help boost this channel up into the YouTube stratosphere. But I just kind of like to get to the surface of YouTube first. Andrea Maggard kicking it off with a lovely, wonderful, deeply appreciated super chat. Morning from Virginia. Glad to have you back. Yes, it is good to be back from my 2-week vacation. It seems like everybody's taking a vacation at the same time. Other people like Nick, they get a forced vacation. But yeah, it is good to be back. It's good to be back in the swing of things. Jet lag is kind of not a big issue for me, but I do get a little bit loopy about this time. So I'm not really responsible for whatever happens tonight. But okay, again, as I said, we're talking about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Why the hell are we talking about him again? Because of a superstar Judge Ascarati, or Ascarati, as we've been calling her, Judge Ascarati. She unsealed all of the documents that had been submitted by the lawyers for both sides. All of the things that certain people have been complaining that they may not have been able to get all of the information they wanted to presented to the court, that they were prevented from showing some of the things they wanted to show. Well, that's what we get to do now. We get to jump back into it and find out exactly what was there, what was suppressed, unquote unquote. What did people want to keep out? What did people want in? What did people want to do to each other that they weren't allowed to do? Those are kind of some of the things we're going to be looking at as we go through these documents. Oh, hey, Mortimer Duke, thank you, sir. That is deeply, deeply appreciated. A $5 donation for the kimchi fund. There is certainly no shortage of kimchi here in Korea. that is muchly appreciated. And while I'm thinking about it, I'm so terrible at doing this. But if you're new here and if there's something you want to say and you want to guarantee that I'll see it and guarantee that I read it, if there's something you want to ask, something you want to get off your chest, some opinion you want to do, just hit up a super chat. That's the easiest way to do it. That's a guarantee that it'll be seen and read. I try to look at the chat as much as possible, but I'm kind of doing other things over here, so it's kind of hard to keep an eye on the chat most of the time. So how did we come up with these documents? The court unsealed them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they just find their way here. They're in the court, and you have to go to the court to get them, or find some other way of getting our little hands on them. So how did we get our hands on them? We got our hands on them through a superstar, a LawTube superstar, Andrea Burkhart. Andrea Burkhart did a very, very, very good thing. And she's come under a lot of criticism. She's come under a lot of praise, and there's been a lot of inquiries as to what exactly it is that she was doing and why. So I thought we would let her describe this here in her own words. Let's bring this up here. This is a press release that she made just today. Let me get my little face in here on it. See if we can. Well, that won't help, will it? Let's increase the size of this just a bit, or it's not going to cooperate, is it? All right, whatever. I will just read it. Andrea Burkhart at Burkhart Law. For immediate release, public access to court records is vital and constitutionally protected. Washington lawyer publishes recently unsealed documents. Kennewick, Washington, August 1, 2022. Over 6,600 pages of recently sealed documents in the Depp v. Heard matter were obtained by attorney Andrea Burkhart and published on her website, andreaburkhart.com/documents. All of you can go there, and all of you can look at these documents on your own or as a group or whatever you want to do. You can go there and you can review all of these documents because of Andrea Burkhart. For public access, Burkhart said, in the United States, we have a tradition of open courts with trials open to the public. The Supreme Court recognized in Richmond Newspapers, Inc. v. Virginia, that the First and 14th Amendments clearly give the press and the public a right of access to trials. The public's right of access is not absolute, but the justification for access to court records in general is that transparency in government is critical for us to be able to evaluate our system of justice and determine if it is working as we expect and intend it to. Amber Heard and her attorneys have gone on national television to claim that the trial wasn't fair because she wasn't allowed to present certain evidence to the jury. The public has an interest in being able to assess the merits of her complaints about the court system. Certainly, if the court is not fair and did not treat a party fairly, then that is something that we would want to know. Virginia has a statute that specifically provides that records maintained by the circuit courts shall be open for inspection and that copies will be furnished subject to a reasonable fee. At 50 cents per page, these 6,642 pages cost $3,321. The enthusiasm for accessing copies of the documents was rapid and overwhelming, and sufficient funds were raised within hours. If I recall, I think it was less than an hour, I think. Excess funds totaling $7,000 were donated to Children's Hospital of Los Angeles and Art of Elysium, two charities that were impacted by the trial. I again thank the hundreds of generous people who donated. Having followed this trial for more than 2 years, my appreciation for the importance of direct access to courts has grown because prestige media outlets have proven unable or unwilling to accurately and fairly report on the proceedings. Recent wildly inaccurate coverage about these unsealed documents reaffirms the importance of making these materials publicly available so that anyone can evaluate the contents themselves. About Andrea Burkhart. Andrea Burkhart is a criminal defense attorney in Washington State, USA, and an experienced trial and appellate litigator. She provides legal color commentary on her YouTube channel, accessible at, link down there, A. Burkhart Law. Her website is andreaburkhart.com. All right, that is how we got here. That is how we got the document. She did a little crowdfunding. She set up her little crowdfunding site, and she got a ton of cash, which allowed her to gain access to every single one of the documents that the court had. And I've talked to Andrea, and we've been on a few other streams together before, but I was talking to her, and she will be on my stream a week from today. Right about this time, 1 week from now, we'll have her on here to talk about this whole situation, why she feels it's important to have these documents out, the process that she went through of deciding to take it upon herself to do this, and to see what, some of her favorite documents, some of the favorite tidbits that she's been able to glean out of the documents up to that point. But anyway, she'll be on here a week from today, so please pop in and say hi to her at that time. So now what we've got to do is decide what documents to look at. There is absolutely no shortage of documents out there. I mean, the main thing that I think people want to see, and the main thing that most of the other law tubers are looking at, are the motion in limine, or the motion to limit the information that Johnny Depp is able to provide. In other words, what Amber Heard wanted to keep out. I think that's kind of the focus that most people are focusing on, and we'll get there eventually. But what Amber Heard wanted to keep out, I mean, obviously has the train wreck factor, where you kind of want to see what she didn't want Johnny Depp to introduce. Such things as her career, her, however brief it may be, as being a stripper, allegations of being an escort, things like that. Clearly people are going to have that prurient interest, that base desire to see what is it that Amber Heard doesn't want us to know. But what I want to do is I want to look at a few other things, a few different things that I think are pretty interesting. There was a lot of discussion at the time it was going on why Johnny Depp's team was able to force Amber Heard to go through the Dr. Mommy's psychological evaluation, Dr. Curry's psychological evaluation, but why Johnny Depp didn't have to do the same thing for Amber Heard's side. And that's what I want to look at today. I want to look at the motions to try to compel each other to undergo a psychological evaluation. And we'll look at those documents today. We'll get as far as we can, and then we'll wrap up next time if we don't get through them all in the 2 hours we've got today. And another thing, I want to look at the documents that the evidence that Johnny Depp wanted to keep out. I think that would be fun to see what he didn't want to have in. Then we'll probably get around to Andrea to Amber's side of things. But to kick us off again, because we're back with Johnny Depp, we cannot not have the Johnny Depp Mega Pint Legal Vices official pimp cup loaded to the brim with a quadruple gin and tonic today to keep me hydrated during all this. Susie, hey, you just got on. What have you missed? A letter from Andrea Burkhart explaining why she thinks we all have the right to review documents and how she raised $7,000 to cover the cost of obtaining every single one of these documents and then giving the remainder to charities. That's what you've missed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into this and start looking at these documents. We'll look at them in the order they were filed. And most of the filings are redundant with regards to these two motions to compel each other to undergo psychological evaluations. So we won't cover every single page of every single document. Just want to hit the high points to sort of give you an insight into what was going on in the minds of these people. Cheers to those of you who think get on the Mega Pint. We have the Mega Pint. Good. All right. Let me pull up the oldie document here. The first document that I want to look at is where? All right. Go ahead. Tell me I boomered out on that. Okay. All righty. I had it right. There we go. We want to share this document. Boom. All right, let me bring back up my screen so I can see what I'm doing. This is I wish you guys could see like the setup here. It's quite a complex little thing to have like 18 different windows open and try to keep tabs on all of them. All righty. Let me see how I think it's best to do this. All right. I am going to see if minimizing this window makes my life any more difficult. A little bit. All right, we'll keep it big. I don't have to stare at my mug while we go through all this. I'll just kind of try to monitor the chat over here. All right, and as we kick this off again, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It's good to see you all here. I'm glad you're here to go through this with me. We've got 250 people here today already. That's pretty good. We got 130 likes. So another 100 of you at least just kind of need to reach down there and hit that like button and jump in and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. We've picked up a few more subscribers since this began. And again, if there's anything that you want to ask, or if there's anything you want to say, anything you want to get off your chest, anything you want to call Johnny Depp or Amber Heard, the best way to make sure that I see it and it gets read is to do the super chats. All right. This first deal is a memorandum of law in support of plaintiff John C. Depp II's motion to compel independent medical examination of defendant Amber Heard. So this is Johnny Depp making his motion to the court to force Amber Heard to undergo her psychiatric evaluation by Dr. Curry. It's been so long since we've heard about Dr. Mommy and what she was up to. So what have we got? I've highlighted some parts here. We'll look at the highlighted parts and read through them. Plaintiff John C. Depp hereby moves this honorable court pursuant to Virginia Supreme Court Rule 410 to require defendant Amber Laura Heard to submit to an independent medical examination, IME, by a qualified healthcare provider of Mr. Depp's choosing. In short, Ms. Heard has placed her mental condition directly at issue in this case. Now, that sentence is going to become very, very important. Under this rule, the way I understand it, this Supreme Court Rule 410 for the Virginia Supreme Court is that in order to compel someone to do something like this, they have to have placed the issue it has to be directly at issue in the case, and there has to be sufficient grounds for doing it. But this idea of placing the mental condition directly in issue in the case is something that's very, very important as we figure out why Amber Heard had to submit to Dr. Curry's examination, but Johnny Depp did not have to submit to Herr Spiegel, Dr. Gollum, Dr. Smeagol, Dr. everyone, whatever various nickname you want to give him. So her expert disclosures, see what they do is they all file their disclosures. They say, these are who our expert witnesses are. These issues are what they are going to testify to. Both sides submit all of that information before we get to this point. So before this motion is filed, Amber Heard's side and Johnny Depp's side have already said, we are going to call ABCD expert witnesses, and they're going to testify to XYZ. So, what we've got is Ms. Heard has placed her mental condition directly at issue in this case. Her expert disclosures include proposed testimony from a clinical and forensic psychologist, Dr. Don Hughes, who will apparently testify at length about Ms. Heard's purported post-traumatic stress disorder. We may all remember that from the trial, when that was Dr. Hughes' big deal, was testifying that Amber Heard had PTSD from all of this alleged abuse that she suffered. So, Dr. Hughes is apparently going to testify at length about Ms. Heard's purported PTSD and IPV, the intimate partner violence related behaviors. Dr. Hughes' assessment of Ms. Heard's mental condition was based upon multiple psychological evaluations and interviews with Ms. Heard. While Mr. Depp had no intention of requesting such an examination in this case, Ms. Heard's expert disclosure leaves him no choice. This was a good thing, I think, to say. What they're saying here is essentially that Johnny Depp had no intention of subjecting Amber Heard to this testimony, to this psychological evaluation. He had no intention of doing so, but when they saw her expert witness list and saw Don Hughes was going to testify that she had PTSD and how Johnny Depp's IPV related behaviors affected everything, then she made it an issue, and therefore Johnny Depp had no choice but to request an independent evaluation. Let's see how that works out. In order to meaningfully rebut Ms. Heard's proposed expert testimony and defend against her allegations in the counterclaim, Mr. Depp must be afforded his own opportunity to examine Ms. Heard's mental condition through an expert. Thus, the court should either require that Ms. Heard sit for a medical examination, or alternatively, strike Ms. Heard's proposed expert designations relating to her mental condition. So he's given the court an option. Either let us do it because she's making this all about her. She's making this all about her PTSD and the IPV behavior pattern problems. Because she's making this all about her mental state. Either get rid of her expert witnesses that are going to talk about her mental state, or allow us to do an independent psychological evaluation of her to rebut her doctor's expert statements. So the background, here's the background. And this is an interesting background. I did not know any of this until I read this background. The court may be aware this is not the first time in this case that a request for a medical examination has been submitted to the court. Back on November 1, 2019, Ms. Heard brought a motion demanding a 410 rule examination of Mr. Depp. So it was first back in 2019, Amber Heard's team tried to force Johnny Depp to undergo a psychological evaluation. Even after he did this, his lawyer said he didn't have any intention of subjecting her to a psychiatric evaluation until she made this all about her. So this is interesting. Back in 2019, Team Amber had already submitted a motion trying to force Johnny Depp to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Former Chief Judge White denied Ms. Heard's motion in a November 15th, 2019 order, finding that there was no good cause shown for the IME. And the IME is the independent medical evaluation. See Exhibit A, B. We'll look at these parts of these exhibits later. So, in his successful opposition to Ms. Heard's motion, Mr. Depp correctly pointed out that his mental condition was not in controversy. That's very important, as the basis for his application or his motion to have Amber Heard subjected to the evaluation, he was saying that she directly said she was suffering from PTSD. So they're arguing she put her mental status in direct question, and it became a direct issue in the case. But they're saying, the judge said that there's no good cause shown for an IME in this case, and because Johnny Depp's mental condition was not in controversy. His physical actions, did he abuse her or not, are the questions in controversy, not whether he had any mental illness or anything along those lines. While Ms. Heard attempted to unilaterally make Mr. Depp's mental condition an issue, so he's saying we didn't want to do it. Ms. Heard tried to make his mental condition an issue, where Ms. Heard argued in her own declaration that Mr. Depp had a history of drug and alcohol abuse and had a temper, etc. Mr. Depp did not assert that he was suffering from PTSD or any other mental condition as a result of Ms. Heard's defamatory statements that would call his mental health into question. So she's saying, again, to sort of summarize this, she's arguing that because of the abuse, the physical and emotional abuse she suffered, she has PTSD. She has a mental condition that arose directly from the alleged actions of Johnny Depp. So that is how she placed her mental condition directly into issue. Does she have PTSD or not? But in Johnny Depp's case, he's arguing we never said that. She was saying he has a history of drug abuse. He has a bad temper. And that may have caused him to commit these acts. But Mr. Depp didn't say, oh my God, Amber Heard defamed me, so I'm suffering from PTSD. He didn't claim that he was suffering from any mental condition or any mental deficiency because of what Amber Heard was doing. So he's arguing, his team is arguing, Johnny Depp did not place his mental condition into question. So therefore, she has no right to ask for this for him to undergo this psychological evaluation. So contrastingly, as discussed in further detail below, Ms. Heard has asserted that she suffers from PTSD. Ms. Heard has asserted that she suffers from PTSD and other mental conditions, purportedly as a result of her relationship with Mr. Depp and Mr. Waldman's public statements. Thus, it is Ms. Heard, not Mr. Depp, who has made the strategic and calculated choice to put her mental condition in controversy. And so the argument is Ms. Heard's mental condition is in controversy, and there is a good cause exists to grant Mr. Depp's motion. So again, in the issue of fairness, if she gets to have her expert say that she's suffering from all these mental conditions, then the defense or the prosecution, whichever one is on the other side, in this case, it's the prosecution. It's not the prosecution, it's the claimant, we'll call them the plaintiff. Johnny Depp has a right to independently evaluate her, to check on the veracity and the truthfulness of her statements and those of her expert witnesses. So that, in a nutshell, is Johnny Depp's argument. That she claims she's suffering from PTSD as a result of him, so therefore her doctor says she suffers from PTSD, and we get to see if our doctor agrees that she suffers from PTSD. All righty. Here, Ms. Heard has placed her mental condition squarely in controversy, and good cause exists to grant Mr. Depp's motion. According to Ms. Heard's expert disclosures, Dr. Hughes was asked to conduct a forensic psychological evaluation of Ms. Heard to assess for the dynamics and consequences of intimate partner violence that may have been present in a relationship with her now ex-husband, Mr. Depp, and to assess for any psychological consequences stemming from the defamatory statements to the media made by Mr. Depp through his attorney and agent, Adam Waldman. Okay, let that sink in a little bit. All right, thus, Dr. Hughes's testimony will be both defensively against Mr. Depp's complaint and offensively in support of Ms. Heard's counterclaim. Dr. Hughes will also reportedly testify, among other things, that, and again, as I said, before we get to this point, both sides have already submitted their expert witness list, their CVs, and what they're going to testify to. So this next bit comes directly from Amber Heard's side's expert witness submissions. Dr. Hughes will also reportedly testify, among other things, that results from psychological testing suggest that Ms. Heard is not malingering or feigning psychological difficulties. The overall impression of the objective psychological testing suggests several clinically significant difficulties for Ms. Heard that likely cause notable impairments in functioning. Ms. Heard's responses to the PCL-5 support the DSM-5 diagnosis of PTSD with an etiology of the intimate partner violence. Ms. Heard's endorsed symptoms in all 4 clusters of PTSD: intrusive reminders of the trauma, avoidance of reminders of the trauma, negative alterations in cognition and mood, and alterations in arousal and reactivity. So those are the things. So those are all psychological issues that Ms. Heard's expert, Dr. Hughes, couldn't think of her name there. These are the things that Dr. Hughes is going to testify to. So Johnny Depp's lawyer again is saying if her expert is going to testify to that, we want to examine her and see if our experts agree. Mr. Heard's expert disclosure for Dr. Hughes goes on to discuss in much greater detail each of these purported findings. In light of this purported expert testimony, Ms. Heard has unquestionably placed her mental condition at issue. Indeed, Mr. Depp obviously disputes these assertions. Any purported PTSD or IPV-related behaviors allegedly suffered by Ms. Heard cannot be caused by Mr. Depp because he did not abuse Ms. Heard. But Mr. Depp's ability to effectively dispute this testimony would be significantly prejudiced should he not be afforded an opportunity to conduct his own examination of Ms. Heard. Mr. Depp is entitled to explore, 1, whether Ms. Heard in fact suffers from the alleged mental conditions. Again, she is alleging that she is suffering from PTSD and IPV-related problems. So they're saying that Johnny Depp has the right to explore whether she in fact suffers from these conditions she's alleging. Johnny Depp has never alleged that he is suffering any mental conditions as a result of Amber Heard's behavior. And 2, the possible root causes of such mental conditions. Accordingly, good cause exists to grant Mr. Depp's motion. Now, good cause further exists because Dr. Hughes' purported testimony is based on 25 hours of psychological examination and a battery of tests to which Ms. Heard willingly submitted. She voluntarily went in for this bank of tests in a strategic effort. Yeah, why did she do this? Why did she volunteer to go and be examined by Dr. Hughes? In a strategic effort to bolster her defenses and counterclaims. She did it to support her claims, and that obviously, because we've all seen the results, have come back and backfired on her. Once again, Mr. Depp did not put Ms. Heard's mental condition at issue. Ms. Heard did. It would be painfully unfair if Ms. Heard were allowed to use this proposed testimony as a sword without also affording Mr. Depp an opportunity to conduct his own IME, the independent medical examination, to explore the factual underpinnings and accuracies of Dr. Hughes's assertions. It is one of the basic pillars of discovery that parties may obtain discovery relating to another party's claims or defenses. So she is claiming that she's suffering from these illnesses, and it's a basic pillar of discovery that we can find out if that's true or not. So here, Dr. Hughes's testimony is clearly going to be a significant part of both Mr. Heard's claims and her defenses. And I believe that may be the end of this part of the thing. There's a conclusion. In sum, Ms. Heard has made a strategic choice to place her mental condition in controversy. And good cause exists to grant Mr. Depp's motion for an IME pursuant to Rule 10. Okay, so that is the motion. It's fairly straightforward, but you'll notice Okay, that's all right. That is the all right. What we do is we have the motion itself, then we have the memo in support of the motion, and then we have the supporting evidence, the supporting documents. This is the memo in support of the motion to comply with the request to undergo the examination. Now let's backtrack a little bit and look at the motion itself. Let's bring that back up. And now I will go dig through the files here and open up the Johnny Depp content. The motion to compel. All right. This is the actual motion to compel. We saw the first part of the memo explaining why this motion should be granted. Hey, Johnny Depp says this is a wonderful topic. Congratulations. I agree. All righty. Boom. Share. Right. We'll get back to that in a minute here. See, told you Johnny Depp said this is a wonderful topic. I agree, Johnny Depp. Mr. Opertino says, yes, please. The motion to compel Depp is pure lame, greasy tomfoolery, but hilarious. Yes, that'll be next. We'll get to the motion to compel Depp in a minute, but right now we're looking at the motion to compel Heard. And again, as we jump back into this, please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already done so. It's muchly appreciated. And don't forget those super chats to draw my attention to anything you want to say or ask. This is the actual memo. This is the actual motion itself. Plaintiff Johnny C. Depp II, by and through his undersigned counsel, got to get through all this flowery language, hereby moves this honorable court pursuant to Supreme Court Virginia Rule 410 to compel defendant Amber Laura Heard to submit to an independent mental examination. I've been saying medical examination, haven't I? Independent mental examination, and states as follows. 1. Counsel for plaintiff hereby certifies they have in good faith attempted to confer with counsel for Ms. Heard in an effort to resolve this dispute without court action, but counsel for Ms. Heard has consistently refused to meet and confer. There's a whole bunch of motions and things that have been submitted to that where basically it's been Johnny Depp's lawyers trying to get Amber Heard's lawyers to come to even meet with them, to talk about the case, and to find a way to do this independent mental examination without having to bring the court into it. And apparently from the submissions that are made, Amber Heard's lawyers, specifically Elaine and Rottenborn, were being kind of dicks and weren't really responding and weren't cooperating and weren't doing anything. So they're saying they tried their best to do this without bothering the court, without wasting the court's time, but they were unable to do it because counsel for Ms. Heard has consistently refused to meet and confer. There was set forth in the attached memorandum in support, which we just kind of looked at a little bit. Ms. Heard's mental condition is very much in controversy in this case, and good cause exists to grant Mr. Depp's motion in accordance with Rule 410. Now, Dr. Curry, up here they say they want Dr. Curry to do the examination. Dr. Curry is prepared to conduct the IME in a period not to exceed 14 hours of examination over the course of 2 days, being very reasonable. Each day would include a 1-hour lunch break, 2 15-minute breaks in the morning, 2 15-minute breaks in the afternoon, and any other breaks as needed and agreed to by Ms. Heard and Dr. Curry. 2 days of examination are necessary for the reasons stated in the supporting memorandum accompanying this motion. And we bump down here. Pursuant to Rule 410, the scope of Dr. Curry's IME would be okay, well, we'll read this and then we'll discuss it. Would be Ms. Heard's current mental condition and her mental condition during and preceding relevant events and timeframes at issue in Mr. Depp's complaint and Ms. Heard's answer and counterclaim. Dr. Curry's evaluation of Ms. Heard will utilize these same tests that were administered by Ms. Heard's expert, Dr. Hughes, with the caveat that any instruments which are identified as possessing poor retest reliability, variability in results if test is taken again, or validity concerns will be substituted for measures with greater established validity and reliability. That's a That's kind of a backhanded swipe at Dr. Hughes. We'll get back to that in a second. Dr. Curry's evaluation will assess all domains that were the focus of the prior examination by Dr. Hughes, including personality profile, post traumatic stress, and characteristics of IPV, coping and adjustment, psychopathology, including but not limited to assessment of mood and anxiety disorder symptoms, response validity / malingering, and any other mental condition identified by Dr. Curry during her review of relevant records and or examination of Ms. Heard. So let's go back and look at what this is. This is, like I said, this is kind of a backhanded swipe at Elaine and her team. So basically they're saying they want to know what her mental condition is now and what it was when all of the shit was supposed to be happening. And then in paragraph 8, they say that they're going to use the same tests that Dr. Hughes used. Just the same test that Dr. Hughes used. Now, but they have this caveat that any instruments which are identified as possessing poor retest reliability, there's variability in results if tests are taken again, or validity concerns will be substituted for measures with greater established validity and reliability. What that is saying is with all these stuff that the Dr. Hughes did, some things have poor retestability, poor replication effects. They kind of suck. So in those situations where Dr. Hughes used tests that sucked, we're going to use tests with greater established validity and reliability. So that's kind of a backhanded swipe there at Dr. Hughes. We're going to do the same thing she did, but the stuff that she did that sucked and was insufficient and substandard, we're going to do better tests. And if you'll recall, what were the results of that? I mean, Dr. Hughes laid out all this great long path of how she was suffering from the PTSD and the IPV related behaviors. She was going through all of these debilitating things that she was suffering based on these test results. But what did Dr. Curry find? What Dr. Curry found, and as she was going through this, Dr. Curry found that some of the tests that were being done, some of the tests have these, I don't know what we call them, false positive answers, where do you have this condition, yes or no? And that condition is worded somewhat like a symptom of PTSD, but it's not PTSD related. And there's these certain questions in these tests that are specifically designed to determine whether or not someone is faking, whether or not someone is claiming to have symptoms of PTSD that they don't really have. And again, these certain test questions are not symptoms of PTSD, but they kind of sound like it. And if you get above a certain score, that's an indication that you're lying. And if I believe Dr. Curry's words were that she answered so many of those fake questions incorrectly. She relied on these fake questions to make it seem like she had PTSD when she didn't really, so often that she scored higher. And remember, a higher beyond a certain point is a bad thing. She said that Amber Heard scored higher than 98% of the people that have ever taken this test. So she answered so many of these fake questions wrong that there were only 2% of the people that have ever taken this test have answered more of the wrong questions than her. And Flux, thank you so much for the super chat. As a lawyer, how do you keep fighting for something you know you can't win? At what point do the lawyers say it's finished? The answer to that is pretty cutthroat and pretty basic. I mean, one, you either believe in it and you keep fighting, or if you don't believe in it and your client continues to give you money and says go do it, you do it. So at what point do the lawyers say it's finished? When their client gives up or when the money runs out. And stubborn clients can be very, very stubborn. I mean, I've had clients that are willing to spend $25,000 to win a $5,000 case. Instead of saying, why don't you just pay the $5,000, even if you're wrong, because it's going to cost you 5 times more to prove that the other guy's wrong than if you just paid it. Why don't you offer him 3 grand? And no, it's principle. I'll do it. People can be stubborn and bullheaded. But that is the basic answer. You stop when the money runs out or when your client gives up. Hey, my Beavers unit, you got here. That's good to see you. Don't know what time you snuck in because I've been reading. Good to see you here. Welcome to join all of the other mods today, keeping things under wraps and not under wraps, under your thumb and keeping things tight and organized. All right, so let's. What do we got here? The Real Winslet fan, long time no see. Yeah, he said, "Hey, Mr. Vice, it's a long time since I caught a stream. What did I miss?" Amber Heard, Johnny Depp stuff. That's what we're doing. So let's go back and. Oh, you've been here the entire time. I didn't see. Somebody I guess asked what I'm drinking. Yes, I am drinking a quadruple mega pint of gin tonic. Yum. All right, let's bring this back up and continue. Got to keep the vocal cords moist. All right. So we're usually utilizing the same tests, but where she used the shitty tests that have less than desirable accuracy, we're going to use better ones. So that there is the end of the motion. And now I want to jump back to the memo in support. So that was the motion. We previously did the reasoning for the motion. I thought it would make more sense to do it that way so that we get kind of an overview of the reasons, what's going on in the background, and then go through the actual motion. But it's handled in the opposite order. Well, the motion we just read is the front part. Next comes the memo. We went through the memo. Now I just want to kind of go back through some of this historical documents, some of these appendix that they talked about. There's some interesting stuff in here that are related directly to the independent mental evaluation or examination. And there's some stuff that's just related to other parts that I thought was pretty funny. And again, there's 100 million pages here, 114 pages. So let's kind of scroll down here and find, this is kind of fun. I wasn't planning on talking about this one, but we can. This is the order. Again, if you recall just a few minutes ago, we mentioned that in 2019, Amber Heard had tried to force Johnny Depp to go through an IME. And he said no, he didn't want to. The court said, just simply, defendant's motion for an IME for Mr. Depp is denied. Done. There's a transcript of a hearing here. This was the hearing from the 2019. This was the hearing on the motion to compel Johnny Depp to undergo a mental examination. A lot of crap just scattered through there. But this is something that I thought was kind of interesting. And this relates to the 2021 motion by Amber Heard to try to force Johnny Depp into getting a mental examination. And the reasoning is basically the whole reasoning is, well, he abuses drugs and alcohol, and that can affect memory. So maybe he doesn't remember beating the shit out of me. And it can also lead, people that have these alcohol and drug abuse issues may have a heightened propensity to commit DV or SA. That's the whole gist of this thing. And we can see this here. In paragraph 5, Ms. Heard states, Johnny has a long history of drug and alcohol abuse. He has a short fuse. He is often paranoid, and his temper is exceptionally scary for me, as it is proven many times to be physically dangerous and or life-threatening to me. She attests that Johnny's relationship with reality oscillates, depending upon his interaction with alcohol and drugs. Johnny's paranoia, delusions, and aggressions increase throughout our relationship. So has my awareness of his continued substance abuse. Because of this, she asserts she is afraid of Johnny, and she says Johnny also requires enrollment in anger management counseling. All of those allegations in her 2016 allegations directly relate to Depp's mental condition and put it in controversy. Now, remember, from what we just read, the statute, the Supreme Court rule was a 410, says that the mental state must be a direct issue in controversy. And the second part was there must be, was it a good something or other for it? We'll get to the second part here. So what he's saying is he abuses alcohol. He abuses drugs. That affects his perception of reality. Therefore, his mental condition is an issue. That seems reasonable on the surface. That seems reasonable that, hey, he may not have a grip on reality, so we want to examine him. We want to examine his mental condition, but it doesn't really hold water for reasons that we'll see soon. In paragraph 7 of her declaration, Your Honor, she talks about an instance of abuse on April 21st, 2016. She says, I celebrated my birthday with friends. Johnny showed up inebriated and high. This is one of his triggers for his aggressive conduct. Because that, in connection with his mood disorders and his paranoia, that being drunk and high trigger his aggressive conduct. She says Johnny started throwing a medium-sized champagne bottle at the wall and wine glasses at me and the floor, both of which shattered. Johnny then grabbed me by the shoulders, pushed me on the bed. She says he grabbed my hair and violently shoved me to the floor. And then he goes on to list several other things like throwing, cell phones at her and all these other things. And so that their rationale, their reasoning seems like it makes sense. It seems to make sense that, okay, he does drugs, he does alcohol, he has these all of these other mental issues that affect his perception of reality. Therefore, we want to examine him to see what his mental issues are. And the suggestion is that these types of mental issues he has heightens the likelihood that he will commit violence, or heighten the likelihood that he'll commit the SA. Again, just on the very surface of it, just scratching the surface, that seems reasonable. Okay, yeah, if he doesn't understand reality, if he doesn't perceive reality, that could be a problem. But Mr. Chu, the wonder attorney, he says, Your Honor, the court should deny this motion. Mr. Depp's current mental state has no bearing on the truth or falsity of the incident Ms. Heard described back in May of 2016. That's it in a nutshell. Whether he accurately perceives reality or not, now or then, whether he accurately is in touch with reality, has nothing to do with the fact of whether or not he actually committed DA, DV, or SA. The violence of the domestic nature has nothing to do with his mental state, now or then. He did it or he didn't. It has nothing to do with his mental state. That's Mr. Chu's argument, and it is a good one. Mr. Depp's current mental state has no bearing on the truth or falsity of the incident Ms. Heard described back in May of 2016, 2.5 years ago. For the truth of that, we have the deposition of 2 police officers who came to the scene. So again, they're saying his mental condition doesn't matter it has nothing to do, no bearing on whether or not he committed the violence. 2 police officers, they came and they can testify whether or not he committed the violence. 2 police officers who came to the scene who were trained in domestic abuse, who were called, and they both testified under oath in the divorce proceedings that they examined both Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard. They interviewed them both. They traded off male and female. They found no signs of any injury on either one of them. There's where we get the truth. And we'll have the police officers. We've asked them to stipulate to that testimony at which Ms. Heard's counsel was present and cross-examined. They haven't told us yet. We may have to subpoena them, but we hope to use that testimony. So, Mr. Chu continues, that's what is relevant here. As the court is well aware, to get the rather extraordinary relief of an IME and an independent mental examination, in order to get this extraordinary relief, not extraordinary in a personal injury case, that's standard operating procedure. So he's saying, yes, if it's an injury case and someone says they were injured, because that's always one of the things they complain. They, in a personal injury, they claim mental anguish and suffering, things like that. So he's saying in a personal injury case, it's the standard operating procedure. It's SOP to get this independent this mental evaluation. But he said, yes, it's not extraordinary in a personal injury case. That's standard operating procedure. But to get the extraordinary relief of an IME in a defamation case, what Ms. Heard would have to establish. So in order to get this in a civil defamation case, Ms. Heard has to establish A, that Mr. Depp's mental condition was in controversy, and 2, that this is the most clear prong, and this is the most clear prong that they failed, is that there is good cause. Here, Mr. Depp's mental and physical condition is not sufficiently at issue, and there is certainly no good cause to do the evaluation. As to the former, Mr. Depp does allege generically emotional damages. So he's saying, I feel bad. She caused me some mental anxiety, not specific, not PT. He didn't say I'm suffering from PTSD. Just kind of a general emotional distress here. So whatever. As to the former, Mr. Depp does allege generically emotional damages. There's no freestanding claim for either intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress. All there are counts for defamation. Nor is there any specific allegation of particular mental injury. In fact, there was none. They're saying he was not mentally injured. Johnny Depp is not claiming he was mentally injured by Amber Heard's defamation. So therefore, you don't have to examine his mental condition because it's not an issue. He doesn't claim he has any mental issues arising from it. In fact, there was none. In these circumstances, the Colorado court has held that where this is here, there is only that's really bad. That was a really bad transcript here. That this is here, there is only garden variety allegation of emotional damages. The production of medical records is appropriate, but an IME is not. And that's precisely what Your Honor has already ordered Mr. Depp to do and what Mr. Depp has done. So again, to summarize that, we're seeing here that he's saying, yes, okay, she wants us to do this medical examination, but Johnny Depp isn't alleging any mental damages. So this is where Amber Heard went wrong, I think. She claimed not to be suffering generically from mental distress, mental damages she specifically said, I have PTSD and I have IPV related behaviors. She made those specific issues in her claims, where Johnny Depp doesn't say he's suffering from any mental damages. In fact, he says he's not suffering from any mental damages, specific damages as a result of this. He's not putting his mental condition in issue. He's not claiming any of these mental damages, where that's exactly what she was doing, placing her mental condition into question. Does she have PTSD or not? Does she have IPV related behavioral problems or not? Her expert says yes. Johnny Depp's experts get to come in and examine her to see if they agree or disagree with her chosen expert. And on the other hand, he's saying we don't have any mental issues. We're not claiming any mental damages as a result of her actions. We're not saying we have PTSD. We're not making an issue of it. So therefore, you don't need to examine Johnny Depp mentally. He doesn't need to undergo a mental examination. The law says in such cases, it's enough if we provide our medical reports. We've already provided the medical reports. So therefore, your request for the IME must be dismissed. And again, these are the allegations that were made in the 2019 case. I mean, the 2019 motion. Here, what Ms. Heard is attempting to do is assess Mr. Depp's mental condition, not a specific act, to discredit him years after, not before the misconduct. So, what his mental condition is today has no bearing on what it was or what happened in May 2016. Finally, Your Honor, the Gordon versus Davis case again handed to me this morning was from the Florida Court of Appeal. And as best as I can tell, plaintiff alleged that defendant slandered. Now, again, this is her saying that she suffered the mental damages as a result of the defamation. And Johnny Depp isn't saying that. So that comes important. That comes in to play here, and it's kind of important. As best I can understand, the plaintiff alleged in that case, the case that Ms. Heard's team submitted to try to persuade the judge, said in that case, the defendant claimed that the plaintiff was psychotic. So the slander case was where you called me crazy. Well, of course, in that circumstance, that's relevant. So that makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, if you say, hey, if I write an op-ed that says, person X is crazy, and person X says, hey, I'm not crazy, and I suffered damages because you called me crazy, I'm suing you for defamation. Well, in that case, whether or not that person's crazy is a direct issue in the case. However, Mr. Chu goes on to say, but Mr. Depp did not say you called me crazy. So he's saying Mr. Depp isn't saying that, oh, Amber told me I was crazy and I'm not crazy. He called me a wife beater, and that's a lie. So again, that's where Amber Heard may have made a mistake in not asserting he was crazy, maybe, as part of this. So then he would have to deny whether or not he was crazy. And as soon as he denies he's crazy, then that puts his mental condition at issue. That's the thing. You keep things out by not mentioning them. And if somebody mentions it, opens that door, then you're free. That's why they couldn't mention Kate Moss. They couldn't mention the Kate Moss kicking down the stairs story until Amber Heard's side opened the door by saying, oh, then I was thinking of Kate Moss on the stairs. As soon as she said that, if you'll recall, Ben Chu went, yes, because she opened the door and they could now argue that. They could now present that evidence. So what he's saying is, they called him a wife beater. That's the defamation, not crazy. Just being a wife beater does not automatically mean you have to undergo a mental examination. He's saying it doesn't matter he's crazy or not. What matters is he a wife beater or not? And that doesn't put his mental condition at issue, nor does her serial false declarations that have been proven false. And in 2019, the court gave Amber Heard's lawyer, Mr. Treese, an additional 4 minutes to try to make a better argument. And then the court says, your time is up. Mr. Treese, thank you, Your Honor. The court, thank you. Request for an IME is denied. Just cold. The request for an IME is denied. In this case, the medical records this is the court talking. This is the court's decision now. This is why the court did not grant the motion to force Johnny Depp to undergo a mental examination in 2019. Sorry. In this case, the medical records of Mr. Depp have been ordered to be produced. I assume will be produced if they have not already been produced. The request in this case, and now whenever this is like, I'm not a racist, but anytime someone says I'm not a racist, but like some racist shit is going to be said right after that. Kind of the same thing is happening here. The judge says, I don't want to characterize anyone's actions badly. So I don't want to think that someone did something just to be a bad person, but now he's going to take a swipe at Amber Heard's team. So I don't want to characterize anyone's actions badly, but to some extent, the request from Amber Heard that Johnny Depp undergo the examination seems to me to be an effort to have a medical assessment by an expert who would then be offered as a witness to testify as to the credibility of the parties. And I don't find that to be appropriate or helpful. We have a jury that will be in this case, and they can be the fact finders as to the credibility of the witness. So I find no good cause shown for the IME in this case and deny that request. Would you do an order and note whatever exceptions you may have and pass on that? So that's the 2016 motion. So what he's saying, that's just what they're saying there. Johnny Depp is saying, hey, she said that she's suffering from PTSD. Her expert witness says she's suffering from PTSD. We want to interview Amber Heard with our expert to see if our expert agrees. And on the other hand, the much weaker argument that was made 2 years prior to this by Amber Heard's team was that, well, he uses lots of drugs and he's an alcoholic, and that affects his alertness, his memory, and his perception of reality. So therefore, he may be suffering from mental illness. And the court said, well, okay, but that has nothing to do with the issue of whether or not he's a wife beater. You called him a wife beater. So his mental condition then and his mental condition now have nothing to do with that. So therefore, you don't need to do that. Phew. Moving right along. See, let me just kind of back up here, see if I haven't been able to look at any comments for quite a while. There's no outstanding super chats. Cool. All right. Yeah. Yep. All righty. Moving on down to some other of these documents that are in this 114 page deal. We're only on page 14 right now. I'm page 17 right now. Okay. This is Amber Heard's reply, I guess, to that. Okay. Now, this is Amber Heard's team again arguing. The motion was that we just read that was dismissed. This is their arguments for why that needed to happen. This is their reasoning why they said that Johnny Depp's mental condition actually was in question, even though the judge said it wasn't. Miss Heard stated, Johnny has a long-held history of drug abuse and alcohol abuse. He has a short fuse. He's often paranoid. His temper is exceptionally scary for me. Has been proven so many times to be physically dangerous or life-threatening to me. Johnny's ration, we read this before, which actually Johnny Depp's lawyers used against them. Johnny's relationship with reality oscillates depending upon his interaction with alcohol and drugs. Johnny's paranoia, delusions, and aggression increase throughout our relationship. So has my awareness of his continued substance abuse. Because of this, I am extremely afraid of Johnny and for my safety. Johnny also requires enrollment in anger management courses and a batterer's intervention program. On April 21, 2016, I celebrated my birthday with friends. Johnny showed up inebriated and high. Johnny started throwing a magnum-sized bottle of champagne at a wall and a wine glass on me on the floor, both of which shattered. Johnny then grabbed me by the shoulders and pushed me onto the bed, blocking the bedroom door. He then grabbed me by the hair and violently shoved me to the floor. On May 21, 2016, Johnny was inebriated and high. He became extremely angry. Johnny continued to rant in an aggressive and incoherent manner. He demanded that we call Io Tillett Wright, Io, to prove his paranoid and irrational accusations about some delusional idea he was having. Johnny ripped the cell phone from my hand and began screaming profanities and insults at Io. I heard Io yell at me to get out of the house. Johnny then grabbed the cell phone, wound up his arm like a baseball pitcher, and threw the cell phone at me, striking my cheek and eye with great force. Mr. Depp specifically challenges the truth or falsity of these above statements and his actions as motivated by his mental condition and substance abuse. So this is the argument she's trying to use to support the argument that he needs to undergo a mental evaluation, is because he's doing all this crazy shit. As shown above, the 2016 declaration of plaintiff's complaint undeniably placed Mr. Depp's mental condition in controversy. So, again, this is so weak. It's blah. he's crazy, so therefore his mental condition is in question. No, it's not, because his mental state has no bearing on whether or not he hit her. It's a he did or didn't. It doesn't matter if he was crazy. It doesn't matter if he was perceiving reality differently. It doesn't matter if he was in complete control of his faculties. So just saying something is an issue doesn't really make it an issue. Now, as shown above, the 2016 Declaration of Plaintiffs undeniably, well, it is deniably because the court denied it, undeniably placed Mr. Depp's mental condition in controversy. Indeed, the very statements that Mr. Depp challenges in his complaint leave no doubt that his volatility, paranoia, temper, aggressive and destructive tendencies, delusional, irrational, incoherent ideations, understanding of reality that oscillates depending on his interaction with alcohol and drugs, and need for anger management counseling are central to the truth and falsity of Ms. Heard's statements at issue, and to Ms. Heard's credibility and Mr. Depp's lack of credibility. So again, she's trying desperately to wrap this idea that he's volatile, he's paranoid, he has a temper, he's aggressive, is somehow proof that he's a wife beater, and therefore proof that her allegedly defamatory statements are true. Remember, that's what this is all about. It's not about anything other than, were her statements that Johnny Depp, that she suffered at the hands of an abuser, was that statement true or false? And whether that abuser is crazy doesn't enter into it. And again, just saying that Mr. Depp's mental condition, therefore, is directly at issue doesn't necessarily mean it is. And an independent medical examination is essential for assessing the truth or falsity of Ms. Heard's statements relating to Mr. Depp's mental condition and turbulent nature. His mental condition and turbulent nature are not the questions here. Was he an abuser or not? That's the issue. And is equally essential to support the credibility of Ms. Heard's account of the lack of credibility. That's just stupid. That's stupid talk. And then she says here that she satisfies all the rules, all the requirements, that there has to be a real issue and there has to be a good cause. She says it's an issue and she has a real good cause. And then Dr. Spiegel is qualified to conduct the IME and his selection is appropriate. So they wanted Dr. Spiegel to examine him. And the court, as we saw, said, no, your motion is denied. All of that is nonsense. This is interesting. This has nothing to do with the motion. All righty. Hey, all. We've got 515 of you here right now. Good to see you. It's time for me to come up for oxygen here just for a little bit. I've been reading furiously for the last hour. Quite frankly, the gin tonic's getting a little warm. While I'm up here for air, why don't you all hit that like and subscribe button? That would be awesome. I would deeply appreciate your likes and the subscription. God, we've got like 30 subscriptions since we started. That's really awesome. Hey, keep that up. Glad to have you here. Those of you that have just subscribed and those of you that are wondering whether you should subscribe or not, we're doing this. We're doing Marilyn Manson. We're doing Uvalde. We're doing what's his face? Mr. Shoot 'em Up. Alec Baldwin. We're doing these cases, and we're gonna be doing some older cases, O.J. Simpson, whatnot. So stick around, hit that subscribe button, and continue to join us. And if there's anything you want to say, anything you want to make a point, you have a question to ask, you want to get something off your chest, the best way to do it is the super chats. Having done that, let's dive back into here. Oh, this is odd. I have a work text here. Let me pause while I send a very, very quick response to the work text. All right. I am done. As soon as I hit pause here. There. Oops, I spelled finish wrong. There we go. All right. Sorry for that rude interruption. Oh, we have a flashing signal here. Oh, hey, Maya 4949. Thank you. Wow. That is deeply appreciated. Very, very nice of you to do that. You're awesome. We'll raise you up to the god of the channel. You have the highest super anything today. You have the highest super chat, super sticker, super like. You win so far. And Freddie Stardust says you have a soothing voice. Why, thank you very much, Freddie Stardust. Appreciate it. Let me take one more drink and we'll get back to this random issue that is unrelated. What I'm looking at now is it's just a long list of complaints from Ben Chu to Elaine's firm, basically complaining about everything they're not doing. You know, we've got, for example, what do you got? The mental examination of Ms. Heard, and what the date on this is 2021. So there's like, hey, look, we've been trying to get a hold of you for weeks. You know, she's made this mental condition of hers an issue we need to examine. Then we've got here, you're not, we've asked you 30 questions you haven't answered. When are you going to answer them? This is just a laundry list of complaints from Ben Chu's firm to Elaine's firm, complaining about stuff she's not doing. Let me check one more thing here. Sorry. All right. I am back. I apologize. Yeah. So this issue has nothing to do with the request for a mental examination from either party. This is just something he was complaining about that I thought was kind of telling, a little interesting. This is about the metadata. Remember, they had continually asked for metadata to be provided so that they could check on the veracity of the photographs. They wanted to be able to determine whether they'd been tampered with or not, and nothing was getting done. So this is Ben Chu complaining about that. Here we go. Numbers, the RFP numbers 5 through 11. These requests seek underlying data, imaging, and or inspection of Ms. Heard's devices for the purpose of evaluating whether the photographers and other evidence, like that quote unquote evidence, that Ms. Heard relies on to support her abuse claims has been subject to manipulation by Ms. Heard or other persons, which we know she has manipulated them because she tried to pass off a couple of pictures several times through the trial that all looked subtly different. So saying we want to be able to check out her devices, to check the metadata, to find out whether the images have been screwed with. Evaluating the underlying data is critical to making that assessment, especially since the veracity and authenticity of these photographs forms a core part of Ms. Heard's case. We note that counsel for Ms. Heard routinely spends time, routinely spends time during depositions marking these photographs of exhibits, even with witnesses who repeatedly testify that they've never seen these photographs before. I love the way Team Depp words their things. They're very, very snarky, but in a gentlemanly way. They're not just being crabby and bitchy and complaining. They're being eloquently bitchy and complaining. So you're saying, yeah, Heard's lawyers routinely mark these pictures as exhibits, even though the people they're talking to say that they've never seen these photographs before. We also know that Ms. Heard's counsel has repeatedly commented during depositions about the metadata or time and date stamps purportedly reflected in the pictures. See, e.g. transcript of the metadata. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard? I'm going to ask you to look at the metadata here. Did you see that? Depositions. I'm going to ask you to take a look at exhibit number 24. The metadata here reflects May 21st, 2016. In short, Ms. Heard clearly intends to rely on photographic evidence, quote unquote, to support her claims of abuse. The veracity and authenticity of those documents is in dispute, and Mr. Depp is entitled to undertake a reasonable investigation into whether there has been any tampering or manipulation of the underlying data so as to generate images that supports Ms. Heard's narrative. These requests are calculated to accomplish that and are clearly appropriate. Ms. Heard's objections should be withdrawn. So there we see that Ms. Heard's team was objecting to providing these metadata, which I mean, that smells like shady shit right there. That just smells like shady shit. All right, I don't think we have much of anything in here. This is as I told you about earlier, we have the disclosure of expert witnesses where they say these are our experts and this is what we want them to testify to. I'm not sure if I found anything particularly interesting because again, they pretty much testified to these facts. Oh, there are a few things in here that I thought were funny. I think I may have marked them. Oh yeah, yes, I did. There was one section I did here. That's why I'm scrolling through this. Ronald Schnell. We don't need to care about Ronald Schnell. Catherine Arnold. Do we remember Catherine Arnold? She was the film lady that apparently has never seen any films. Ugh. She was brought on to show how Johnny Depp's cruel behavior physically and emotionally towards Amber Heard made her lose money in Hollywood. She was the one that compared Amber Heard to all of these other actors and actresses. And I just thought this was funny. Again, this has nothing to do with the motion to compel the mental examination, but this is the damage that she did testify to this, but it's funnier somehow reading it to me. See, these are the damages that Ms. Heard has suffered as a result of Johnny Depp's defaming her. Ms. Arnold reviewed Ms. Heard's career trajectory to that of comparable actors during similar time frames. So this is a list of actors and actresses that are comparable to Amber Heard. They started at the same time. Actors in similar age ranges and acting styles who broke out around the same time as Ms. Heard. They've watched their careers skyrocket, while the damage to Ms. Heard's reputation has effectively stalled her career. Ms. Arnold is expected to testify that the following comparators, these are the people that Amber Heard's team compares herself to. These are the people that she thinks she's equal to in Hollywood, that she's equivalent to. Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Zendaya, Ana de Armas, Chris Pine. Really, she thinks she is in the same league as these people just because they started at the same time. How many other thousands of actors and actresses started at the same time that never went anywhere because they fucking sucked? Probably everybody except Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Zendaya, Ana de Armas, and Chris Pine. So she's putting herself up there with them and saying, "No, but because of Johnny Depp." Because of Johnny Depp, I didn't get any work. And he's saying, then he goes on to the endorsements. Look at all these things that everybody else is being endorsed with: Rocket Mortgage, Harley Davidson, water climbing gear, Revlon, Smartwater, Huawei, Reebok, everybody. And I just got L'Oreal. Ugh. I just thought that was funny that she would dare compare her stuff to those people. And for Dr. Spiegel, this was just a comment in his statement. Dr. Spiegel has been engaged to analyze and opine on the impact of alcohol and substance abuse, including the combination of drugs taken by Mr. Depp and the potential impact of sustained use of these substances on memory, cognition, and how this may impact Mr. Depp. Dr. Spiegel has also been asked to analyze risk factors associated with perpetrators of IPV, and in his evaluation of the record evidence, whether Mr. Depp has exhibited conduct or behaviors indicative or consistent with any of these risk factors. Farron in the house. Farron, what do you got here, Farron? Good morning, Legal Vices. Thank you so much for your wonderful super chat, Farron. Glad you could make it back safely and in one piece. Me too. Friday's Conspiracy Corner, you'll have to tell us about the Haunted Museum. That's right. When I was in Las Vegas, I went to the Discovery Channel's Ghost Adventures, Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. That was pretty cool. I went there. And for those of you that weren't around at the beginning or yesterday's program, Farron and I are going to be together Friday morning U.S. time, Friday evening Korea and Australia time, and Friday afternoon England time to do another round of conspiracy theories, ghost stories, and whatnot. We're going to be doing Bigfoot. We're going to be doing hauntings, and we might be doing a few other things too. So that'll be on Friday. And Farron, thank you for popping on in here. Good morning to you. It's good to see you around, especially your little happy smiling profile picture there. Righty then. Don't forget to put that on your calendar. I can't remember what time it was. I believe it was so we agreed to do it sometime around 8 Eastern or 9 Eastern. I can't remember because I'm stupid. Farron Bound said, did you go to Legal Vices in Las Vegas too? Yeah, that Legal Vices, I think it may just be an office in some place that just produces porn. I drove, I didn't see anything there. I drove past I didn't see anything. So it was kind of a letdown. But yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay, great. Got it. 9 p.m. Eastern Friday? 9 a.m. Eastern. 9 a.m. Eastern on Friday morning. Because I won't be around in the afternoon. I won't be around on Saturday. It has to be 9 a.m. Eastern. Are we still good, Farron? Are we still good to the 9 a.m. Eastern? Yeah, it's an office in a storage facility with probably like a mattress on the floor somewhere. Yeah, I did not go there. So, okay, there we go. Good. Farron, it's 9 a.m. It better be 9 a.m. Eastern, because if it's 9 p.m. Eastern, I ain't going to be around. So, all right, now that we've strayed far afield. Thanks. Hey, I'll do anything for $5. I'll go off on my ADHD rabbit hole for $5. No question. Thank you so much for that wonderful super chat. I think that may be my first super chat from another YouTuber. Oh, I feel special. All right. So join me and Fair and Balanced as we do that. And there's going to be a couple other, there's going to be a big collaboration on the horizon a few weeks down the road with me, Legal Mindset, and Fair and Balanced doing something that Farron's putting together. We'll let her talk about that later. That'll be a fun night, let me tell you. If that doesn't get her noticed, I don't know what will. All righty, let's climb back into this mess here. So basically, they just came right out and said they want Dr. Spiegel to testify that Johnny Depp was on drugs and alcohol, and he may have some memory issues, and that these are risk factors for abuse. Not that he actually committed any abuse, just that they're risk factors that he may do something, and then that he may not remember having done something. Garbage. Yeah, and so this is they wanted Dr. Spiegel to testify about the Johnny Depp's lack of behavioral control and impulsiveness as a risk factor for IPV. Dr. Spiegel, yeah, maybe we. Okay, she's going to announce it. We're going to be doing a Datamax stream. Farron, myself, and Legal Mindset are going to be doing a Datamax stream in a couple of weeks. That's going to be fun. That's going to be off the hook. Stay tuned for that. Even I'm looking forward to that. So Dr. Spiegel is expected to testify that the lack of behavioral control and impulsiveness is a strong risk factor for IPV. He's not, they just came right out of the beginning and said he's not going to testify as to whether or not Johnny Depp did this. His whole deal is to testify that there is a risk factor, that someone like Johnny Depp may have a propensity to commit IPV. Research indicates a robust association between impulsivity or the inability to regulate certain behaviors and various forms of aggressive behavior, e.g., blah, 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 blah. Cross-sectional research indicates that men who report IPV perpetration are higher in impulsivity compared to men who do not report IPV. Dr. Spiegel is expected to testify that the record evidence reflects that Mr. Depp lacks behavior control and impulsiveness. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so what? Just because he lacks behavioral control and impulsiveness does not mean that he whacked, Amber Heard around the house. Narcissism is a risk factor of IPV. A narcissist is a person who has an inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy for others. Oh my fucking God! Does that sound like Amber Heard or Johnny Depp to you? Well, I mean, first of all, anyone in Hollywood is a narcissist. You don't get into movies and you don't go on to do blockbuster movies because you're an introvert. You don't do it. You do it because you're a narcissist. I mean, that's just it. You want to be noticed. You want to be famous. You want to, duh. But damn, Amber Heard, talk about someone who has an inflated sense of their own importance, comparing herself with Gal Gadot, with Zendaya, with Chris Pine, Jason Momoa. That's a pretty inflated sense of your own importance. This deep need for excessive attention and admiration. Johnny, come back, Johnny. Oh, look at me. I'm going to donate. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to pledge $7 million. Troubled relationships. Yeah, she's had a few. Lack of empathy for others. God. Talk right there. We can see that, geez, if that is a real risk factor for IPV, she is off the goddamn charts. Ugh. Spiegel. Okay, and this is I believe that is the end of all. This is everybody's CV. Yeah, this is everybody's resume. And that's the end of that particular document there. All righty, we can close that up. Phew, I need another drink. Time to take a break. Then we're going to jump into Amber Heard's documents. Because you'll recall, I got to take my watch off. Well, for those of you that keep asking, tonight is I was going to wear the Raketa. This is a Russian watch, the Raketa watch, until Raketa got his stream back, but he got his stream back today. So I'll just say it was because I wore this watch. This is the Raketa made by the Russian watch company Raketa. It's made from the hull of a Russian nuclear submarine that was being refitted. I love that watch. That's a pretty damn cool watch. But it's just getting hot and sweaty in here. So you'll recall that as we went through this document, we talked about this. Back in 2019, Amber Heard tried to compel Johnny Depp to undergo this mental examination on the grounds that, he does drugs and he does lots of alcohol and he does crazy shit. So therefore we need to see if he's crazy or not. And the judge said, no, sorry. Just doing crazy shit doesn't really go to the issue of whether or not he's an abuser. So they denied that. The judge then denied that motion. And then 2 years later, they submit, Amber Heard's team submits their list of expert witnesses. And one of those is Dr. Hughes, who says she is going to testify that Amber Heard suffers from PTSD and IPV related issues. And that's when Johnny Depp's team comes in and says, well, hey, we have problems with that because you have made Amber Heard's mental condition a primary issue in this case. And we want to have the opportunity to examine her to see if our experts agree with her experts. The court said, fine. Well, that, of course, did not sit well, I guess, with Team Heard. So Team Heard, they again file with Judge Askarati a motion to again try to compel Johnny Depp to undergo a mental examination. Yeah, they're basically redoing the same thing that they did 2 years prior to this. The real Winslet fan asks, are these rulings all Judge Penny? Judge Askarati, she's doing the 2019 motion was not her. That was a different judge. But these current 2021 motions are all ass karate. So we've done Johnny Depp's motion to compel Amber Heard, and it was accepted by the court. The court agreed, hey, it's been made an issue. We need to give you a crack at her, and in fairness, you get to examine her as well and see if your expert agrees with her expert. All right. Let me dig some of this up. And while I'm digging up this next document, guess what? It's time to hit that like button. We've got 409 likes and 600 people here. And I don't think that a lot of you 600 were here from the beginning. So let's come on, give me a couple hundred likes. Just get it down there. Let's get our likes up to 600. That would be awesome. And that would let YouTube know that you think I'm something special. So yeah, please hit that like button. Let's see if we can get up to 600 likes just for shits and giggles. And if you haven't already done so, please hit that like button and please hit that subscribe button. The subscriptions are awesome. We've picked up 40 people since the beginning of this. I think that's pretty damn cool. Thank you for that. I can always use more. And I guess I should stop talking and start pulling up documents. We need to examine. No, we don't need to undo that. We need to open. Okay. So, yep. Team Amber says, no, that's not fair. We need to examine Johnny Depp. Oh, dang. Sullen the Lich, thank you so much. Wow. The pot is calling the kettle binger. Yeah, definitely the narcissistic pot is calling, well, Amber Heard is calling the narcissistic pot binger. You is correct. And on that note, by the way, thank you so much for that super chat. Much appreciated. Righty, what am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing half the time. All right, here we go. Oh, we need to get rid of this. We don't need the side thingy there. So this is the motion to compel examination of plaintiff John C. Depp II. This is Amber Heard. This is Amber Heard taking a crack at it. Okay. I just had to check a quick Twitter there from Needy Mods. Right, my Beavers unit. I see you. All right. Need to quit making that blue. Right. Dang it. Stop making it blue. Stop clicking on it. God damn it. There we go. All right. Come now. I like when they use the old language. This is like the bad thing when Catholics stopped using the Latin Mass. You know, this when we get away from using the old legal speech, you come now, the defendant, you know, those kind of words. Come now, the Amber lawyer. It's not even. I love this antiquated, archaic language. Come now, the Amber Laura Heard, by counsel, pursuant to Rule 410 of the Rules of the Supreme Court of Virginia, the rules, and moves this court for an order requiring John C. Depp II to submit to mental examination in accordance with Rule 410, and states as follows. As set forth in the attached memorandum in support, which we will look at, which is incorporated herein by reference. Again, I love this archaic word, which is incorporated herein by reference. Mr. Depp's medical/mental health condition is in controversy, and good cause exists for the court to order a Rule 410 examination of Depp. They want Dr. David R. Spiegel. Dr. Spiegel. Herr Spiegel. They want Herr Spiegel to do the report, because Dr. Spiegel is the appropriate healthcare provider to perform the mental examination of Depp pursuant to Rule 410. As we see in retrospect, I think Dr. Spiegel is the one who needs to undergo a medical examination. Pursuant to Rule 410, the scope of Dr. Spiegel's mental examination would be plaintiff's current mental condition and his mental condition during relevant events and time frames at issue in Depp's complaint and Ms. Heard's counterclaims, which would include evaluating Dr. Kipper's findings that Depp suffered from primary dopamine imbalance, ADHD, bipolar 1, depression, insomnia, and chronic substance abuse disorder, as well as the effects of drugs and medication on Depp and the pharmaceutical effects, should be pharmacological effects, the pharmaceutical effects of Mr. Depp's alcohol and drug use as set forth in the expert designation dated February 16th, 2021. So they just wanted to go through a litany of Johnny Depp's mental illnesses. So that's it. That's the whole gist. It's relevant. There's good cause to do it, and it's an issue. That's literally what their motion says. And then we need to pull up the motion in support, the memo in support of the motion. That's where the meat is. That's where the juice lies. And I'll get this open eventually. There we go. Dun, dun, dun. Phew. Down, 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 down. Now, this is them opposing. This is saying why this is kind of weird because we'll see why it's weird. It's basically weird because they're opposing Johnny Depp's motion. Remember, Johnny Depp made the motion to compel Amber Heard to undergo the evaluation. So they're opposing that as reasons why their motion should be granted. It's remarkably convoluted logic that gets them to this point. So Ms. Heard opposes Depp's motion to compel a Rule 410 mental examination of her, an examination that would be in no way independent because Mr. Depp will not agree to a 410 exam of him. So remember how when she was asked why she had filed a lawsuit for $100 million, and the answer was, well, Johnny sued me for $50 million, so I sued him for $100 million, where she just basically said, I'm a spiteful bitch. Well, that's the same logic that's being applied here. We opposed Johnny Depp's motion to make me undergo a mental examination because he won't let us do one of him. That's it. Their grounds for rejecting his demand is because he won't follow their demand. Yeah, so when it goes from I'm just going to claim double what you claimed, that's essentially what's going on here. Well, we don't think he should be allowed to do an examination of us because we can't do an examination of him. Yeah. And this is their reasoning. Either no party has placed his or her mental health at issue, or both parties have. That is the logical fallacy of the excluded middle. There's more than just these two possible solutions. Either no party has placed their mental health at issue or both parties have. They just completely don't even consider the possibility that one party may have and one party may not have, which is what the judge 2 years before this decided. The judge decided that, I'm sorry, Ms. Heard, you don't get to interview Johnny Depp. You don't get to check his mental health. Mr. Depp's motion falsely claims Ms. Heard has placed her mental condition at issue, while Mr. Depp has not. The truth is that both sides have designated medical experts who opine on each party's mental health. These designations have either placed both of their mental conditions at issue or neither has. Yeah, I don't think that's how logic works, but they're grasping at straws clearly. Mr. Depp claims he needs Ms. Heard to undergo a 410 exam because Ms. Heard has placed her mental health at issue when Ms. Heard designated Don Hughes as an expert who will testify to the PTSD Ms. Heard suffered from the domestic partner violence she endured from Mr. Depp. Okay, yeah, that's what Depp is saying. That she said she's going to have an expert say she has PTSD, so we want to find out if she has PTSD or not. As an initial matter, an expert testifying as to PTSD Ms. Heard suffering is not opining, as Dr. Currently apparently seeks to do, on the truth or falsity of Ms. Heard's claim that Depp abused her. She's simply expressing an opinion on Ms. Heard's PTSD, which the jury is entitled to hear and evaluate as the ultimate fact finder. But if Ms. Heard placed her mental health at issue with the designation of Dr. Hughes, then Depp has placed his mental health at issue with his expert designations, Dr. David Kipper, whom Depp identified in his expert disclosure, and Dr. Curry. So, I mean, that is just logical bullshit. I mean, that literally makes no damn sense. I'm not even going to read that again and try to parse that. It just makes no sense. It's just ridiculous. And this is clearly grasping at straws. I mean, when you start by saying that the reason you're opposing something is because the other side isn't agreeing to the same thing, that's just stupid. I need another drink. My throat is dry. Mr. Depp argues that Dr. Curry should be able to perform a mental exam of Ms. Heard because Dr. Hughes spent 25 hours with Ms. Heard and no one from Depp's side has been able to examine Ms. Heard. Yep. Yet Mr. Depp will not allow a 410 exam of him, even though Dr. Kipper has treated and examined Depp for over 6 years and claims to have opinions about his medical and mental health, as well as the pharmacological effects of medication on Depp. But no one from Ms. Heard has been able to examine Mr. Depp. Problems? Yes. Dr. Hughes is setting herself up as an expert on mental health. Dr. Kipper is not a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. He's just a medical doctor. Different opinions, different people, different qualifications. So, I mean, again, that's her argument why Amber Heard should not have to do and undergo a mental evaluation. I shouldn't have to because Johnny didn't. Well, Johnny doesn't make this an issue. He never says that he suffered these psychological issues. He never said that he suffered from. The second he says, "Oh, because of her behavior, she gave me PTSD," then there might be an issue. But he never said anything like that. Okay, this is the same deal with. We read that already. Okay, and again, this is the whole litany of expert witnesses. We don't need to go into that. So that scared me. I just got a message alert in my ear. Let's close this down. We've done this and open our final document of the evening. What is our final document of the evening, you ask? Our final document of the evening is Plaintiff John C. Depp's opposition to defendant Amber Laura Heard's motion to compel. All right. So Amber made her argument that Johnny Depp should have to undergo the IME, the independent mental examination. And she gave her support, her reasoning, which was, well, if I have to do it, then he has to do it. That is not really a legal argument, even though Amber would desperately like it to be. That is literally her only argument. If I have to do it, then he has to do it. Now Johnny Depp's team gets to oppose Amber Heard's motion to try to compel him. And it goes predictably. Again, this is 132 pages. We're not going to look at 132 pages. A lot of them are things that we've already looked at. How are we doing on time here? Oh, we're going to go a little bit over 2 hours today. My apologies in advance. That's why I kind of wanted to start a little bit earlier tonight. It's because I want to have a life. Hey, we've picked up 50 subscribers since we started today. You guys are awesome. You guys are great. I deeply appreciate it. Oh, and we've already picked up 100 likes. I think we can get to 600 likes real quick here because there's 634 of you, 517 likes. And I'm sure not all of you were here from the beginning. So again, before we jump into this final document, I'm going to make the final appeal. Please, well, not the final appeal, but who am I kidding? Oh, let's be realistic. One of the final appeals. Hit that like button if you like what we're doing here. Let's get us up to over 600 here. That would be just fun and awesome. All right, there we go. We've got 20 already. And if you haven't already subscribed and you like what we're doing here, please hit that subscribe button. And listen to the mods. Listen to Fair and Balanced. She knows what she's talking about. She's a smart woman. Listen to all of my other mods. Where have we gone? My Beavers unit, where have you gone? Where are my mods? Farron, you're the only one I see here. Maybe my mods have abandoned me. All righty. Let's look at this here. What possible arguments could they come up with to oppose the attempt to get Johnny Depp to undergo a mental examination? Again, it starts out in true Chew form. This baseless motion was transparently filed by Ms. Heard and her counsel for the improper purpose of harassing and retaliating against Mr. Depp. It sure seems that way, doesn't it? When your entire legal argument for why he needs to undergo the examination is, well, if you want us to do it, then he has to do it too. And especially when a judge told you 2 years ago, no, you don't get to do a medical examination of him. And then you come back 2 years later, and that's your argument. Well, if he has to do it, then... This baseless motion was transparently filed by Ms. Heard and her counsel for the improper purpose of harassing and retaliating against Mr. Depp. Reduced to its essence, the motion makes the logically fallacious assertion, not fellatio assertion, the logically fallacious assertion that if Ms. Heard must undergo the IME, then so must Mr. Depp to be fair. That is an argument appropriate for a schoolyard, not a court. Boom. Hey, Beav, you're back. Yeah, that's it. That is an argument appropriate for a schoolyard, not a court. Benchu, you rock. The standard for ordering an IME is whether the mental condition of the party to be examined is in controversy within the meaning of Rule 410. It is beyond credible dispute that Ms. Heard has tendered her mental condition as an issue in this action, but Mr. Depp has not. And Ms. Heard's arguments to the contrary are specious. Indeed, her demand for an IME has already been rejected once by the court and should now be rejected again. Going for the throat. The background. Although she failed to properly designate this motion as a motion for reconsideration, and again, it starts out with even though she didn't know what the fuck she was doing and misfiled this motion, even though she's an incompetent ass, and instead set of her hearing, which required the filing of an opposition by Mr. Depp, all of which violate the applicable rules. So yeah, she's an idiot. She's violated all the rules, but we'll still talk. This is not Ms. Heard's first attempt at obtaining an IME. She previously filed a motion seeking an IME of Mr. Depp in 2019, which Mr. Depp opposed, and it didn't work out. The judge said it wasn't appropriate or helpful. Unlike Ms. Heard, Mr. Depp did not previously seek an IME. However, on February 16th, 2021, Ms. Heard served expert disclosures, the Heard expert disclosures, in which she unmistakably tendered her mental condition as an issue. The Heard expert disclosures reveal that for her own use in this litigation, Ms. Heard voluntarily underwent a forensic psychological evaluation and indicate that Ms. Heard intends to introduce self-serving evidence of her mental condition. For instance, Ms. Heard disclosed, the Heard expert disclosure states that, okay, Dr. Hughes did this, Dr. Hughes is going to testify to that, the stuff we already went through a while ago. Given the content, I love the way these things are worded. Given the content of the Heard expert disclosures, Mr. Depp obviously had no choice but to seek an IME of Ms. Heard. In a letter dated June 24, 2021, Mr. Depp's counsel requested Ms. Heard's agreement to an IME, explaining that we would not ordinarily seek such an examination in the context of this action, but that given Ms. Heard's obvious intention to present evidence of her own mental and psychological condition at trial, including evidence based on a forensic psychological evaluation, Mr. Depp has no choice but to seek an IME. Ms. Heard's counsel signaled her intention of filing a retaliatory motion. So Ms. Heard, again, he reiterates why she made her mental condition an issue and why Mr. Depp has not. An eye for an eye is not the standard for obtaining discovery. Beautifully put. An eye for an eye is not the standard for obtaining discovery. Ms. Heard's arguments for an IME of Mr. Depp proceed from the fundamentally false premise that whatever discovery is appropriate for Mr. Heard is automatically appropriate for Mr. Depp as well. Not so. Each request for discovery must be evaluated on its own merits, taking into account the particular circumstances, claims, and defenses of the parties. That's Ben Chu saying, yeah, she gave you these options. Either neither one of us did introduce our psychological state into question, or we both did. He's saying, no, it has to be evaluated independently. So he's saying it is possible that one person may have to do it and the other person may not have to do it. Here, the parties are not similarly situated. Ms. Heard made an informed, deliberate choice to tender her own mental condition as an issue in this litigation. She brought it up. She brought up the PSD. Ms. Heard voluntarily underwent 25 hours of a self-serving forensic psychological examination by her own expert, Dr. Don Hughes, for the specific purpose of using the report, using her mental condition in this litigation. Mr. Depp did nothing of the kind. Ms. Heard's expert disclosures reflect that she intends to present evidence that, based on the forensic psychological examination, to bolster her claim that she was a victim of abuse and also to show that she is suffering additional trauma as a result of the purportedly defamatory statements alleged in her counterclaim. Again, Mr. Depp has done nothing of the kind. It is undeniable that Ms. Heard has placed her own mental condition in controversy. Indeed, it is difficult to imagine a more clear-cut example of a party tendering their own mental state as an issue. But it does not follow that Mr. Depp must undergo the IME as well. Ms. Heard has sought and obtained an extensive discovery into Mr. Depp's medical background and medical records, and previously deposed Dr. David Kipper, who was a treating physician for both Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard. In her motion, Ms. Heard presents a litany of Dr. Kipper's diagnosis of Mr. Depp, cites a reference in Mr. Depp's expert disclosures to Dr. Kipper's anticipatory testimony regarding pharmacological effects of certain medications, and then argues that she should be entitled to explore whether Mr. Depp suffers from these health conditions, the possible causes and effects, and the effects of drugs and medication on Mr. Depp and his conditions. This is nonsense. That's the Jesus wept passage here. That's like, this is nonsense. First, Ms. Heard has not explained, because she cannot, how Mr. Depp's medical diagnosis or treatment are in controversy or relevant. They're not. It's not as if Mr. Depp intends to present evidence that he was diagnosed with a particular ailment and therefore could not have abused Ms. Heard. From Mr. Depp's standpoint, and notwithstanding Ms. Heard's aggressive fishing expeditions into Mr. Depp's medical background, this case ultimately involves a straightforward, factual dispute about whether Ms. Heard lied about being abused. Mr. Depp's mental condition is not at issue, since unlike Ms. Heard, Mr. Depp has not alleged that he is suffering from PTSD because of her conduct. Credibility is for the jury to decide, not Dr. Spiegel. Well, thank fuck for that. Thank fuck that the jury gets to decide who is credible and not Dr. Spiegel. Third, I want to read that again. I just like that. Credibility is for the jury to decide, not Dr. Spiegel. Third, potential testimony as to the pharmacological effects of particular drugs does not require an IME, much less does it justify a complete open-ended inquiry by a psychiatrist into the totality of a party's mental condition. The end. I think I may have, I don't think I made any comments relating to these because we've reviewed all of these. Just want to scan through them really quickly here to make sure there's no bright green spots. Scrolling. These are, we've all seen these before. Yep. That's it. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is all of the issues, all of the documents surrounding these motions that were made. Close all tabs. Boom. All right, that's it. Ooh, and we did it in under 2 hours. Awesome me. Hey, we just hit 600 likes. You guys fucking rock. You guys are awesome. Seriously, all 654 of you, and those of you that came before, left likes and disappeared, you guys freaking rock. That's awesome. 600 is a good number to get to. We got there. We also picked up another 10 subscriptions. We got 60 subscriptions out of this. This is why we do it. That's awesome. So yeah, what we looked at today was the reasons why Amber Heard was forced to undergo Dr. Curry's mental examination, but Johnny Depp was not required to do so. Amber Heard didn't try once to force him to do it. She tried twice to force him to do it. The first one was just, he does drugs and he does alcohol and he can't really, doesn't have a good memory and he sometimes loses his grip on reality. And therefore that's a risk factor. So we need to check his mental condition, which the judge said, I'm sorry, that has nothing to do with the issue of whether or not he abused you. And then she tried it again with the same logic, but with the additional somehow stupid argument that, hey, if he has to do it, I have to do it. But if he doesn't have to do it, then I don't. Farron, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, Lord. This is why I don't pay attention to the chat. Shit happens that I don't want to know about. So yeah, Amber Heard tried twice to force Johnny Depp to undergo a mental evaluation. Twice the court said, no. Johnny Depp tried once. Wait, what the hell happened here? I think my desk is askew. All right, there we go. All righty. Phew, that's the first little look at some of the documents. We're going to keep looking through these. And again, like I said, a lot of people are looking at the motion in limine for Amber Heard to see what Amber Heard tried to keep out with her motion to limit the disclosure, limit what can be talked about at trial. What I want to look at, what I'm going to look at is what did Johnny Depp want to hide? What did Johnny Depp want to keep out? And then we can compare and contrast the two. It was very, very eye-opening for me. So we'll look into that more next time we do this. I'm not sure when. We'll probably get back to some of this either later this week or beginning of next week. And like I mentioned, Andrea Burkhart will be on a week from tonight, where she's going to talk about her process of getting copies of these documents, why she felt it was important to do it, and to get her comments on what she thinks some of the interesting parts of the documents are. We're also going to be covering now tomorrow night. I haven't decided what I'm going to do tomorrow night yet. It'll be a little bit of a late stream. I'm thinking either doing the OSHA reports, which is the occupational safety and health. I haven't been in America for such a long time that I can't remember what OSHA stands for. Occupational Safety and Health Administration, I think it is. But they're the people that are concerned with everything that has to do with safety in workplaces. They released their report on the Alec Baldwin shooting. I haven't read it yet. That might be something that we can do tomorrow. We might do some more of this. We might get into the O.J. Simpson trial. Again, the best stream that I've found for the O.J. Simpson stuff is Court TV. And I'm still the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Agency administration couldn't remember. Great. Thank you, Farron. But Court TV has the best O.J. Simpson feeds, and I think I'm still a small enough channel that I can fly under their radar. So I think I want to do a test stream tomorrow or sometime in the very near future to see if we can keep the video up while we hijack a Court TV stream. Let's find out. But we'll continue with this. Again, I thought I was out, and then they pulled me back in again. It's you can't get away from Depp v. Heard. I don't want to talk about it anymore, but hey, you got to talk about some of these documents. They're quite fascinating. So we'll get into those more later. And again, thank you to my mods who are here tonight. If anybody has any final comments, I'll be looking here while we wrap this up. Thank you for all of you. We picked up another 10 subscriptions, 70 subscriptions a day. That's kind of weird. Thank you so much for that. We've got 664 likes at the moment. You guys are so awesome. That's why I keep coming back, because we have this community. It's great. You're all great. You're all you do. My mods, I love you guys for keeping this thing in line, for keeping us open. And I especially appreciate you, the viewers, the commenters, who we're unbreaded here. We're not controlling. We're very libertarian. We're very laissez-faire, hands off with the comments as far as possible. As long as you don't put my channel in jeopardy with your comments, we let you have your say. We let you do your thing. And I respect and appreciate the fact that all of you commenters know where the line is. And you stay, however, slightly on the right side of that line. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sticking around. Thank you for all of you new subscribers. Thank you for all of you that hit the like button. Couldn't do this without you. Wouldn't do it without you. And another special shout out and thanks to all of you that gave us the super chats and the super likes and the super stickers throughout the day. You guys rock. You guys are awesome. And thank you, Fair and Balance, for leaving us the comment that Amber, the turd that just won't flush. Oh, and with that, we have another super chat coming in under the wire. If anybody wants to get any more super chats, you got to get them in now, because we're going to be shutting it down soon. I wish I was drunk. Long time no see. We enjoy watching you, man. Well, I enjoy being here. And thank you so much for your super chat. That was much appreciated. Lisam says the liquor keeps us sane and decent. This has lasted a surprisingly long time. And for those of you that are wondering, when is the next Fuck It Friday? That'll be the 12th, Friday the 12th. Next Friday will be the second Fuck It Friday. And if any of you are here for the first Fuck It Friday, you know how badly that went off the rails. Just a crazy grift night where the whole purpose of that night is just to grift, for me to grift like a mofo. $50 gets you a shot of whiskey. You get to choose which whiskey I drink, and it gets you a typical usual super chat question or comment. And the whole purpose is to see how liquored up you can get me. The question, the answer to that question last time was incredibly wasted. I had 10 or 12 news articles I wanted to read, and I remember reading the first one and starting the second one. But you guys are awesome. So we'll just have that shenanigan night. That'll be next Friday, Friday the 12th. And then probably the following week, we'll be doing the Datamax thing with Fair and Balanced and Legal Mindset. Next Tuesday will be Andrea Burkhart, and we'll just fill in the blanks with a bunch of other shit, including this. Ooh, that hit. So everybody, again, let's wrap this up real quick here. Hope you have a great morning, a great evening. Thank you all for participating. As I said, I can't do it without you. Thank you, mods. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, super chatters. Thank you to everyone that hit the like button, everyone that hit the subscribe button, and everyone that hit that notification button. And again, come back in a few minutes and just leave a comment, whether it's where you're from or just leave a comment that says comment, or just something, so that the more comments we get on the completed live streams, the algorithm picks that up as engagement and thinks that you really give a shit about what I have to say in my channel, and it puts me up and it gets me noticed and it gets me new subscribers like y'all. On that note, thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow. And until then, enjoy your legal vices. I'm out. Bye.